what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So today we are going to be talking about a movie that I saw in theaters yesterday. So basically, I went to the movie theaters to watch the new ISS movie, which if you don't know, it's a movie about the International Space Station. It looks like it's going to be really good, but because of showtimes, they didn't have it until super late at night, and I went to see a different movie that I had never heard about, but I saw the poster and was like, okay, what the hell is this going to be? It's called Founders Day. And basically, the main antagonist of this horror slasher film is somebody who goes around in a pampered wig and a creepy red mask and murders a bunch of people. And I was like, you know what? This looks ridiculously stupid. Let's give this a shot. And I had very, very low expectations for it, and it actually was amazing, and I loved it. So let's talk about it.
Modern Movie Review.
So the first thing I want to go ahead and say before I get too far into this, I really enjoyed this movie and I loved it. I'm going to be talking about it. So there are going to be spoiler alerts later on, but the first minute and a half, I'm going to quickly give you guys a rundown of what it is without giving any spoilers. So, like I said, this is a horror slasher film. It takes place in a small town. It's around election time, and there's a bunch of political tension between two mayor candidates. There's one person who has been the mayor, and they're all about consistency and keeping the town exactly how it is. And then there's another mayor who wants to make some huge changes, but because of the plot of the story, doesn't really care too much about these political figures, just, you know, their relationships with, you know, other people in the town. We don't really get any idea what their giant political stances are, but basically you can see there's a lot of tension between these two people. There's a bunch of people going around the town like smashing mailboxes of people who are voting a certain way, and it basically just creates a lot of like tension in this small town. There's a bunch of people who are already pissed off at each other. There's riots in the street. It's a very interesting movie, and I think the fact that it uses a political intrigue to its advantage works well. And then we kind of get a general idea of the fact that since it's a small town, everybody knows everybody, and some people kind of dislike other people, and murders start happening. And it's a slasher whodunit. There's going to be over like 15, 16 characters introduced by the end of the movie. A decent amount of them are either going to be dead or revealed as murderers or both. And I think overall, it's a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of plots and twists and turns. There's a lot of really interesting settings that I think work really well. And I think that every murder sequence that we see is different enough from each other that it's still fun to watch. And I think that overall, a lot of the like critic scores and Rotten Tomato scores and everything for this movie is going to be really low. But if you enjoy slasher horror movies and you go and watch this, you're going to love it. I think that it kind of works as a dark comedy in a lot of different ways. And overall, I just had a blast with this movie and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to come on here and give it a proper review. So that was all my spoiler-free thoughts. We're going to go ahead and dive into the entire movie now. So, I am going to go ahead and say that this movie is a little bit too overambitious in my opinion. I feel like it's a really good movie and it has a lot of really massive swings. And there's a lot of things that they're trying to pull off here that I don't think quite hit the mark. But I want to say we should really applaud this movie for trying to do some of the things that it does, because in slasher horror films, there is a trope that started with the first Scream movie where there are going to be multiple killers and you're going to have to try to guess who the killer is. And then eventually you're going to see one of the characters die and you're going to be like, what the hell? That's crazy, because I thought this person was going to be the killer. And then at the end of the movie, it reveals, oh my God, surprise, this person was never actually dead and stuff like that. And I think that this movie has a lot of killers, and the way that they tried doing some of these twists work well, but because of just certain circumstances, it becomes too overconvoluted, because they have 4 separate killers in this movie, and it is all over the place trying to figure out who killed who and why certain people were killing certain people and why certain people were reacting to certain events certain ways. It honestly becomes kind of a mess, and I feel like this movie was very, very good. And like I said, I love the twist. I think that all of the killer reveals work relatively well, and I think that a couple of them are surprising, and obviously others of them are not. But I think that overall, because they had 4 killers, there are parts of this movie where it's kind of like confusing who you're supposed to be rooting for, who the main character is, and what we're actually trying to accomplish with this movie. So, do I think this movie is a good movie? On a technical level, not really. I think that there's a lot of choppy editing. There's a very complex story that happens in such a short amount of time that the first like 30 minutes of this movie really feels like they are just speed running getting this thing off the ground, and they're killing as much people as possible as quickly as possible so that they could get to the later third act final sequence where we figure out who the actual killer is, what their motive was, and stuff like that. And because of it, there are some characters where they get revealed as a killer. The first sequence where we see somebody get revealed as a killer, I was actually shocked. I was like, oh my god, I did not expect them to be the killer. But because he immediately chases after the person to kind of explain what's happening, and the other person, you know, is freaking out and running or whatever, the first person who gets revealed as a killer gets killed, and like they die. And it's a very weird, traumatic scene that happens really fast. And because everything happens so fast with that, we have no way of knowing what that killer's motive was until they reveal it at the end of the movie, and it does kind of bother me a little bit. Okay, now with that being said, I want to get into some of the stuff here that I enjoyed a little bit more that I think works relatively well. So to start at the very beginning of the movie, they do a really good job of setting up this small town feel. We're experiencing, you know, there's this person who's a political figure. He's trying to be the new mayor, and he's running this campaign, and he has a daughter who's a lesbian, and for some whatever reason, he's very traditional. He thinks that it's ruining his image. He gets into an argument with his daughter. The daughter goes away, and it kind of almost immediately sets up like, okay, this politician's kind of a really shitty dude. And both of his kids are introduced in the beginning of the movie. They both seem to have very interesting relationships with each other. They're young, fun people. And I think that they do a really interesting job of showing how, like, parents that treat their kids like shit can lead to, you know, issues with their kids. And I think that everything with that family dynamic is very interesting. And then something that I like is we find out that the son of that mayor candidate was kind of dating the daughter of the other mayor candidate. And it kind of creates this weird little, like, Romeo and Juliet type, like, love story that's, I think, actually was relatively interesting to see. There's a character named Adam in this movie who I thought was supposed to be like the main character after the first character dies or whatever. I was expecting him to be the next person who we focus on here. And it's revealed that, you know, he's a part of some like weird love triangle or whatever. He just found out his sister died, and he's very emotional about that. And he seems like somebody who is a good kid. And overall, you kind of want to root for him because he has a father who's treated him like shit. He just lost his sister. And he's in like a weird love triangle, and the girl that he used to date is now dating somebody else, and that's really weird. And we're focusing on him. He's a very interesting character. I like him. I think that the actor who plays him is fun. And overall, I think that there's a lot of stuff to like about that specific character. And they, like I said, because the first 30 minutes are really fast, they kind of like speed run some of this stuff with him. They go to a party. He kind of has a couple of interactions with this girl who he used to date, and there's like this tension here. And they do a good job of kind of creating this feel that like, oh my god, they used to be in love, and there's this will they won't they kind of energy with whether or not they'll get back together. And I think that this is part of where I would say this movie kind of starts to lean in more towards like a comedy side of things, because he is going through something super traumatic. His sister just died or is missing, or either or one of the two things happened. And the girl is just over here just like, why didn't you text me back? Why do you leave me on red? And stuff like that. And she's being like over the top, over dramatic, kind of like, oh my god, we should still be together and stuff like that. And then it does kind of get a little interesting. They seem to be kind of like almost at a point where they're like, yeah, let's try this again. And then the guy has to leave for the night, and he does. And what's it called? Then we get one of our first actually kind of scary moments in the movie, in my opinion. I was watching this in theaters, and I will say, if you watch this in theaters, you will probably love this sequence, because I love the sequence, and I think it does some horror tropes really well. But basically, there is a sequence in the movie, and part of this movie takes place at a movie theater, because the main, like, teens in this movie work at a movie theater. But there's a scene, they're having a party at a movie theater after it's closed, because they all work there or whatever, and they're having a good time. And then, the one girl, who is the daughter of the current mayor, is left behind to kind of close everything up, and she's cleaning things up, and she's getting ready to leave, and she hears a noise coming from one of the auditoriums, and she's kind of freaked out. So she slowly grabs her pepper spray and makes her way over there, and she's going down the aisles with her flashlight, kind of checking everything out, and then she gets jump scared, and it's like, oh my god, what's happening? And we find out it's just these two teenagers who are absolute dicks for no reason, who are just playing a little prank on her. And she kicks them out or whatever. They leave, they go their own way or whatever, and now she's actually leaving for real this time. And then the TV screen of the auditorium that she's in turns on, and it starts playing this like fun, happy-go-lucky little advertisement, being like, the show is about to begin, da 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 da, or something like that, right? And everything about the way that scene was shot, for one, it felt really real because she is walking away from the screen or whatever, and the screen is behind her, and if you're watching it in a theater, you see the majority of the screen is covered by the actual movie screen behind her, and there's this creepy music playing, and the lighting and everything was really interesting there. And she turns around, freaks out, has no idea what's going on. She kind of like watches the screen for a little bit, and slowly behind her you can see the silhouette of the killer coming up to her. She turns around and she gets pepper sprayed in the face using her own pepper spray, and then he kills her. And it's a very interesting kill sequence, and the main thing about it that I really like is it does something that I think works really well in horror movies, which is if you get jump scared during a sequence or whatever, and then it gets revealed, oh, that was just a fake jump scare, it's not that serious, it kind of takes away some of your like fear a little bit, if that makes sense. Well, it kind of takes away your expectance to be scared or whatever, because you get that fake jump scare and you're like, oh, okay, that's good, this the rest of the scene's going to be fine. And then that way, when they do the second jump scare, it's actually a lot scarier, and I think it worked for me for the most part. I'm trying to think about it this way. Say you have a surprise for somebody, right? And you surprise them with something small beforehand. Then they're like already like super excited about that or whatever, and they're like, they've had that surprise already happen, so they're not expecting anything else. And then when you do a bigger surprise after that, this bigger surprise is 10 times more surprising. And I feel like they did that with this horror sequence, and it worked really well for me. I think that was fun. I really enjoyed that. Was it still super scary? Not overly, but I do think that it did a good job of getting my heart pumping a little bit, and there's a fun little thrilling sequence there. And something else that I liked that I thought was very unique about this, I haven't seen a whole lot of slashers, so I don't know how much it is. The main killer kind of had like a theme song. Every time he would show up, there'd be like a heavy metal electric guitar that would do this quick little riff where it's just like really loudly, and then some metal music would start playing after the kill is like happening, and it was really cool. I like that. I thought that the music for that was fantastic. And what's it called? So now at this point, she's dead. The girl who just died was the daughter of one of the mayor candidates, and then the other candidate or whatever, their daughter has also died. So now the entire city's kind of in shambles. There's a bunch of people who are dead. They're trying to figure out if they should continue doing their little carnival experiment thing that they're gonna do or whatever. And this part is where things kind of start to like skyrocket and ramp upwards. Almost every character that has a name starts getting targeted and killed. So the two kids who are being jerks the entire time, who are kind of like screwing around, pretending to scare people, they're in class detention and they get murdered at the school, which I think is a really funny sequence because they're in detention, they get left or whatever, they're told to write an essay, and then they're just like, let's just have sex on the teacher's desk or whatever. And it's really ridiculous and over the top, but I think it works really well. It's really funny. And then that entire sequence, I was laughing my ass off because just like the fake like what's it called, like their fake foreplay conversation is just so stupid, and I love it. It was so funny. And then what's it called, the guy is struggling to get his pants unzipped because he's wearing super tight pants. And what's it called, when the girl screams or whatever, he's just like, yeah, it's that good, isn't it? And then he gets murdered. And that was funny. I don't know. I think that the dark humor in this worked really well for me. Like, it was just the right kind of comedic timing and everything that works well with me. And then on top of that, the horror aspects of it were pretty interesting because there were some great gore sequences. There were some relatively decent jump scares that would catch you off guard. I've already mentioned the first kind of reveal of the first killer. I think everything about the way that scene was shot was really well done because the first killer was not somebody I was expecting to be a killer, because every conversation we've had with him, he seems very like soft-spoken and he seems very like emotional, and he's somebody who I thought was supposed to be the main character of this show now. So when it gets revealed that he's the killer, that entire sequence with them like slowly walking up to the room or whatever that he's in, you can hear him writing on the chalkboard, and then you see him from behind and you can see like his hair and his silhouette and everything, and you can see who it is, and it's kind of like, oh, oh my god. And then he turns around and he's just like, wait, I can explain. And then, like I said earlier, he chases down the person, gets killed. And after that, they had just the weirdest, and I will say, this is another part of this movie that I think that critics and stuff probably hated. They just have, like, the weirdest, like, little montage of, like, what's it called? The current mayor is now getting drunk off her ass because her daughter died and she doesn't know how to cope with it. What's it called? The person who is now running for mayor is pissed because both of his kids are now presumably dead. And so he's very emotional and he's going through a bunch of shit. And it just kind of like goes through every single character we've been introduced to and whatever they're currently doing to this like really dope like rock and roll song that's playing with a cool guitar. There's a lot of rain sequences and a bunch of like weird cinematic shots of like police lights in the rain and stuff like that. And it feels so out of place, but I loved it. I think that like tonally for this story, it just worked well. Because we just randomly watched like 5 people die. I think it's now 6. Is it 6? I don't know. Either way, almost every character who has a name in this movie dies. And I think it's relatively interesting. But yeah, so after that that montage I just explained to you guys, we now have the, what's it called? Current mayor giving a speech, drunk off her ass. The speech goes incredibly poorly. Everybody gets asked to leave the place or whatever. And then a murderer goes, kills her, kills the other mayor candidate or whatever, kills the main sheriff deputy person because they just happen to be in the building, and pretty much just a giant kill spree of every character that has a name, except for who I'm assuming was supposed to be like their main character, but like they didn't do really much to introduce this character or build up this character, except for the fact that she was moving. She was originally going to be leaving town. But what's it called? We just get like a montage of a bunch of people killing. The 2 political heads or whatever have a really over-the-top stupid fight, which, once again, was just so funny to me. I think that both of those actors way overplayed their roles, and it just made it so much more entertaining because they're just having like a stupid political argument about something that shouldn't work, but because both the actors are taking it way too seriously, it's fantastic, and I love it. And then after that, sets up the big 3rd act final set piece or whatever, where the girl who's moving out needs to go back to her house because her dad has been like kidnapped or tied up or something, and it gets revealed who the killers were, and dun dun dun, it was 4 people, and one of them was the main girl who we thought died at the beginning, and it was a really weird twist. And they had a sequence where they kind of like showed the opening scene where she died again, but like show what actually happened. And it's just so ridiculously bad and stupid, and it's hilarious. And she does, the typical Scream villain thing where she does the monologue and she's just like, here's why we were going to kill everybody, and here's the massive plan, and here's everything that, we were trying to do. And then it just ends poorly for her. She ends up getting outnumbered because it's the girl and her dad versus the one killer who's explaining everything. And yeah, it was pretty lackluster, the ending, but everything else I thought worked relatively well, and I liked it. I thought it was good. It was really weird trying to figure out who the main character was, and at the end they kind of reveal that the old teacher who was like everybody's favorite person actually kind of like not murdered the people, but he was the one who kind of like set up everything so all these different people would murder all these different people. And he did it because there's a government rule where if there is no mayor elected or whatever, the longest standing board member would become mayor. And he's been the longest standing board member, and he really just wanted to be mayor because he actually was going to, change stuff in the town. And he thought that both of the 2 people who were running for mayor couldn't do it, and that they both sucked. So he kind of went through this massive plot to kill everybody. And that was weird. But it worked. And I like the whole like premise though behind like why it's okay that he kind of like set up all of these murders and stuff like that was he's just such a likable guy. And I think that the actor who played him is pretty likable and does a good job of making us like the character, that when it gets revealed and the main girl who survived or whatever, who's kind of like the Sidney Prescott of this movie, she's just okay with it too, because she's like, yeah, I love this teacher, he's fantastic, he'll be a great mayor. And that's it. That's the movie. And it's one of the first slashers I think I've ever seen where technically the killer survived and the main victim survived, and they both had happy endings, and it was interesting. This movie I feel like was all over the place, and my review was probably all over the place as well, but I dug it. I thought it was great. It was definitely my style of movie. I really like slashers, so I really like this. And yeah, so that was my overall review. If I had to give this movie a score, because of all the technical issues with it, with like some of the editing, and like I said, a lot of the pacing does not work out very well. Like the first half of the movie feels really rushed, and then the last half of the movie feels really slowed down. I would give this movie probably a solid like 77 out of 100. I really liked it. I think that the dark comedy worked really well for me. A lot of the action sequences worked relatively well for me, and I thought it was nice. I enjoyed it. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. 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 Eyes wide open.